And if stories like this pull at something inside you, like you've heard them before, somewhere you can't remember, you might want to subscribe now so you don't miss what comes next. I was 8 years old the first time I realized the face in the mirror wasn't really mine. The bathroom light was this sickly yellow, humming just a little, like it was tired of staying alive. The old ceiling fan rattled above me, pushing around the smell of toothpaste and damp towels. I had just finished brushing my teeth. My hair was a mess. My nose was still a little red from a cold. Everything about that moment was normal, except my eyes. I leaned closer to the mirror, my small hands pressed against the cold porcelain of the sink. My breath fogged the glass for a second, and when it cleared, for just one heartbeat, I didn't see a child. I saw a man. His face was longer, sharper. There was a thin mustache resting above pale lips, a hard jaw, a starched white collar, a dark suit. His eyes were my eyes, the same color, the same shape, but heavy.
Emily.
So heavy, like they had watched too many things fall apart. And then, like a wave breaking on sand, my own face slid back into place. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest so hard it hurt. I didn't scream. I didn't call my parents. I just stood there, listening to the ceiling fan whir and my own shaky breathing. No, I whispered to myself. That's not me. That's not me. But deep down, in a place words never quite reach, I already knew I was lying. If you're still here, stay with me. What I'm about to tell you sounds impossible at first. It only stops sounding impossible when you've heard all of it. I tried to forget what I saw that night. Kids see strange things all the time, right? Shadows that look like monsters. Clothes piled like someone hiding in the corner. That's what I told myself as I lay in bed, staring at the cracks on the ceiling. But the feeling wouldn't go away. It wasn't just that I had seen a different face. It was that the face had felt familiar. Like meeting an old friend in a crowded place and not remembering their name, but knowing, without a doubt, that you've shared something important. For days, I avoided the bathroom mirror at night. I'd brush my teeth as fast as I could, staring anywhere but straight ahead. I'd splash water on my face and snap the light off, like I was afraid the darkness might catch me. But curiosity is louder than fear, especially when you're 8. One night, I forced myself to look again. The bathroom light flickered once when I turned it on. I stepped closer to the mirror, my heart already racing, my small fingers clenching the edge of the sink. "I'm Daniel," I whispered to my reflection. "I'm Daniel Harris." My voice sounded too small for the things I was trying to hold back. For a long moment, nothing happened. Just me, just my own face, a little scared, a little pale, with toothbrush foam still at the corner of my mouth. Then my vision blurred. Not like I was dizzy, more like the world behind the glass shifted without moving me. The edges of my reflection trembled, like heat rising off asphalt. For less than a second, I saw the man again. The same angular jaw, the same thin mustache, the same eyes, older and tired, looking right into me, through me, as if he recognized me too. Then he was gone. I fell back, my shoulder hitting the towel rack, the clatter loud in the small room. Across the hall, I heard my parents pause the TV. I held my breath until they pressed play again. I didn't tell them, because how do you tell someone that your reflection isn't yours? The dreams started a few weeks later, except they didn't feel like dreams. Dreams dissolve when you wake up. They fade, slip through your fingers like water. These didn't. They clung to me, solid, weighted. In those dreams, I wasn't a child. I was taller. My hands were bigger, longer fingers, faint lines at the knuckles. Sometimes I saw them holding a pen over a stack of papers. sometimes an amber-colored liquid in a short, heavy glass. I could feel the weight of a wool coat over my shoulders, the tightness of a collar around my throat. The world around me was always dim, hazy with smoke. Offices lit by green-shaded lamps, streets washed with the amber glow of gas lamps and very early electric bulbs. Cars with rounded fenders and thick, fat tires. Men in hats, women in long coats and gloves. I didn't just see it, I smelled it. Old paper and ink. Wet pavement after winter rain. The bitter edge of cheap whiskey. The smoke from someone else's cigarette. Sometimes there was fear. The metallic taste of it in my mouth when a phone rang after midnight. The hollow ache in my stomach when I heard raised voices behind closed doors. The sense that every decision was a coin flipping in the dark. When I woke up, I knew things I shouldn't have known. How a leather briefcase creaks when you snap it closed. How the echo in a courthouse hallway sounds under polished shoes. How it feels to loosen a tie at the end of a day that's carved years off your life. One morning at breakfast, I tried to explain it. In my dream, I said, stirring my cereal until the flakes went soggy. I was older. I had a job. I think I was a lawyer. Or something like that. My mom smiled, the way parents do when they think they've figured it out. "Maybe you saw something on TV," she said, sliding the milk toward me. "You have such an active imagination." But we didn't really watch much besides cartoons and family movies, and nothing I'd ever seen on a screen had felt that real. Later at school, our history teacher showed us an old black and white photograph. A courthouse from the early 1900s. A group of men in dark suits stood on the steps, hats in hand, their faces washed out by time. The moment the image appeared on the screen, my heart stopped. I knew that place. Not from books. From the inside. I knew how the stone steps felt underfoot. I knew how the doors sounded when they shut. I knew, with a strange, painful certainty, that if I could walk into that photo, my feet would remember exactly where to go. It wasn't just familiarity, it was homesickness. The name slipped out of my mouth before I understood what it meant now. It was a Saturday afternoon. My dad was on the couch, reading. Sunlight came in through the curtains in dusty stripes, and I had just woken up from another one of those heavy dreams. "Dad?" I asked, walking into the room, still half in that other life. "Can I ask you something? You're weird?" He lowered his book and smirked. "Weird is kind of your specialty," he said. "Go ahead." The name was already sitting on the back of my tongue, waiting. Does the name Adrian Mallory mean anything to you?" I didn't know where it came from. It felt like a word I'd said 1,000 times in a life just out of reach, like the shape of it had been worn into my mouth over years I couldn't remember. My dad frowned, thinking. "Doesn't ring a bell," he said. "Why?" I swallowed. My heart was beating too fast for such a quiet room. "I think that's me," I said softly. Or it was me. There was a moment of absolute stillness, then he laughed, just a little too loudly. "So you've given yourself a new name now? Adrian Mallory? Sounds like some character from an old movie." He reached over and ruffled my hair. "You're Daniel," he said. "Daniel Harris. That's more than enough name for one life, buddy." "One life," I repeated under my breath. That night, in my dreams, someone called out, "Adrian," across a crowded room, and I turned without thinking. The way the name settled in my bones scared me more than the mirror ever had. My grandmother's house always smelled like old books and lavender. The walls were lined with framed photographs, sepia faces, stiff poses, people whose names had slipped out of memory generations ago. I liked to walk down the narrow hallway and point at them. "Who's this?" And this one. And what about her? Sometimes she'd tell me stories. Sometimes she'd just squint, shrug, and say, I'm not sure anymore. One afternoon, while my parents talked in the kitchen, I wandered off alone into that hallway of ghosts. My fingertips brushed over the wallpaper as I walked, eyes skimming over smiling couples, stern portraits, children frozen in time. And then, I stopped so suddenly my socks slid on the polished wood floor. There he was, the man from the mirror, the man from my dreams. He was standing beside an old car, hands shoved into the pockets of a dark coat. His gaze met the camera, but somehow it felt like he was looking straight through it, straight through time, straight at me. The suit, the collar, the set of his mouth. Even in black and white, he was unmistakable. My throat went dry. Grandma? I called, my voice thin. Who is this? She shuffled up behind me, drying her hands on a dish towel, her slippers whispering on the floor. She peered at the photograph, and her face softened with a sad, distant kind of smile. Oh, she said quietly. That's your great-granduncle. Your grandfather's uncle. I never met him. He died long before I was born. Some kind of accident, I think. Why do you ask? My heartbeat thudded in my ears. What was his name? I whispered. She squinted, thinking. I believe his name was Adrian, she said slowly. Adrian Mallory. The dish towel slipped from my hand and fell to the floor. I didn't even feel it leave my fingers. For a moment, the hallway tilted. It felt like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, staring down into a second life layered beneath my own. Adrian Mallory. Adrian. Me. If you're still here, listening, there's probably a part of you that's wondering what you might have forgotten. If stories of past lives, déjà vu, and strange echoes fascinate you, you can support this channel just by liking this video and subscribing. It tells the algorithm that you want to hear the rest of this story. And maybe others like it. That night, sleep didn't bring rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. My face. Staring back at me from that photograph. Memories, if that's even what they were, rose and sank like something trapped underwater. The slam of a heavy door. The smell of smoke. A woman's voice trembling. You can't keep doing this, Adrian. You can't. I woke up tangled in sweat-damp sheets, my heart racing. At breakfast, the world felt thinner, like the air itself might tear if I pushed too hard against it. My parents were talking about normal things, bills, schedules, groceries. Milk circled my cereal in a slow, lazy spiral as I stared into the bowl. I need to tell you something, I blurted out. They both looked up. My mom's eyes were gentle. My dad's were cautious, as if he was opening a door he wasn't sure he wanted to see behind. I swallowed. I think I used to be someone else, before I was born. I think I was Adrian Mallory. The room went very quiet. My mom's chair creaked. My dad's spoon hovered halfway to his mouth. And what makes you say that? My dad asked carefully. So I told them. I told them about the mirror, about the dreams, about the courthouse, the clothes, the feelings that didn't fit inside a child's body. I told them about the photo at Grandma's house and the way my chest hurt when I heard his name. I told them about the fire. The memory, if that's what it was, came out of me like it had been waiting years to breathe. There was a fire, I said, my voice trembling. In a big building with stone columns. I was on the second floor. There was smoke everywhere. People shouting, running. I remember turning back, not to escape, but to grab something. A file. A case. Something important. I could feel heat licking at my lungs just talking about it. I remember reaching for it, I whispered. And then the floor just gave way. My hands were shaking. My mom reached across the table and held them. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "our minds can play tricks on us. Maybe you saw something or heard something, and your brain turned it into a story, especially when you're young." "I didn't," I snapped, louder than I meant to. "I never saw that photo before. I never heard his name, but I remember it. I remember dying." The word hung there, heavy, unwelcome. My dad cleared his throat. "If what you're saying is true," he said slowly, "then Adrian Mallory was you. Once." I nodded. "But now," he added, his voice tight, "you're our son. You're Daniel. Understand?" I did, and I didn't, because somehow I was both. And I had no idea how to carry two lives in one small body. The universe has a cruel sense of timing. A few weeks later, my grandmother called. "I've been thinking," she said over the crackling phone line, "about what Daniel said, about Adrian. There used to be some old papers up in the attic. They might still be there. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to look." So, on a gray Sunday afternoon, we drove back to her house. The attic was a museum of forgotten years. Stacked boxes, old trunks, suitcases with broken handles. Dust floated in slanting beams of light from the small window. The air tasted like dry wood and history. My grandmother opened a heavy cardboard box and started digging through it, muttering to herself. "Here," she said at last, pulling out a worn folder tied with a brittle string. "These were your grandfather's things. I think Adrian worked with him for a while. Maybe there's something in here." She handed the folder to my dad. He untied the string and opened it carefully, as if the papers might fall apart under his fingers. Inside were letters, yellowed newspaper clippings, and a small stack of black and white photos. As he sifted through them, my heart hammered against my ribs. And then he stopped. There it was, a photo of a grand building with stone columns and a wide flight of steps. A courthouse. Underneath, in faded ink, someone had written, "Courthouse. Fire. 1934. I stepped closer, drawn like a magnet. The columns, the stairs, everything matched the place from my dreams. My chest tightened. "Look at this," my dad said quietly, handing me a clipping. The headline punched the air out of my lungs. "Local attorney Adrian Mallory dies in courthouse fire." My vision blurred, but I forced myself to read. It described a late-night fire of unknown origin, panic, smoke, people rushing down the stairs to escape. One man going back in, Adrian, trying to retrieve important documents for a case. It said the second floor partially collapsed. It said he was found in the wreckage. It said resuscitation efforts failed. Found. Efforts. Failed. I knew those words from the inside. My hands shook so badly, the clipping rattled. "This," I whispered. "This is what I saw. This is how I died." My dad's face had gone pale. My mom covered her mouth with her hand. No one said it out loud, but up in that dusty attic, surrounded by the ruins of another man's life, something shifted. The line between coincidence and something else got very, very thin. My parents didn't want to go. "What good will it do?" my mom asked. "What if it just upsets him more?" But my dad, ever the practical one, finally agreed with me. "If this is haunting him," he said, "maybe seeing it will help." So one morning, under a low ceiling of gray clouds, we drove to the city where the courthouse still stood. Outside the window, the suburbs gave way to older streets. Narrower roads, taller buildings, storefronts that looked like they had stories of their own. My forehead pressed against the glass. As we got closer, my heart beat harder, faster, because I knew this place. I shouldn't have, but I did. The courthouse rose up ahead of us, stone columns scarred by time but still imposing, steps wide and worn down in the center. Newer buildings crowded around it now, but it still dominated the square like a memory that refused to fade. We parked. When I stepped out of the car, my legs felt shaky, like I was walking underwater. The air smelled like exhaust and wet pavement. Somewhere, a raven called from a lamppost. Footsteps and distant traffic murmured around us. "You okay?" my mom asked, her hand hovering just above my shoulder. I think so," I said. But my voice didn't sound like it belonged to someone okay. We climbed the stone steps. With each one, memories rose up, uninvited. Men in overcoats smoking at the bottom, women in hats clutching folders, the echo of heavy doors, the hollow sound of shoes on stone. The lobby was cool and dim. A checkerboard marble floor spread out beneath our feet. Modern fluorescent lights hummed overhead. But in the corners, I could almost feel the softer golden light that used to live there. My eyes went straight to the staircase on the right. "Up there," I whispered. My parents exchanged a look, but followed as I climbed. On the second floor, I walked slowly down the hallway, fingers trailing along the polished wooden railing. My feet seemed to know where to go before my mind caught up. At the intersection, I turned left, past a row of windows, stopped in front of a door with a brass handle. Third on the right, I stopped. "This was my office," I said. The plaque on the door bore a different name now. Another lawyer, another life. But in my mind, I saw the old one. Adrian Mallory, attorney at law. I saw a cluttered desk, an overused chair, shelves lined with books. I could almost smell ink and paper, and a faint trace of cologne. Tears burned behind my eyes. "I'm sorry," I whispered, to the man I had been, to the people I had left behind. "I didn't mean to leave things unfinished." My mom's hand finally came to rest on my shoulder, firm and warm. My dad stood a little behind us, his face unreadable. "Daniel," he said carefully, "what do you want to do now?" I didn't totally know. I only knew there was one more place I had to see. "The fire started further down," I murmured, "near the record room." We walked, our footsteps soft against the floor. At the end of the hallway, I stopped once more. "The floor gave way. Here," I said. Of course, it had been repaired. There were no scorch marks, no broken boards, no gaping hole. But I could still feel it. A weakness under the surface. A bruise in the building's memory. For a moment, I wasn't 8 years old. I was a grown man running through thick smoke, lungs burning, eyes streaming. I saw myself, Adrian, burst into a room full of filing cabinets, papers already curling in the heat. The folder I needed lay open on the table, edges blackening. I grabbed it, turned toward the door, and the floor lurched with a sickening crack. The memory hit me so hard my knees buckled. Dad grabbed my arm to steady me. "That's enough," he said, his voice rough. "We're leaving." I didn't argue. I couldn't. As we walked back down the stairs, it felt like we were climbing out of my own grave. If you're still here, still with me, imagine standing in the exact spot where you died, in another body, another life. Would you feel free, or more trapped than ever? After that visit, the dreams changed. They were no longer broken fragments. They were full scenes, vibrant and aching with emotion. I saw my old apartment, small, neat, the desk piled with books and papers, half-drunk cups of coffee leaving rings on coasters. On the table by the window sat a chessboard, one side half played, the other chair empty. I knew someone was supposed to sit there, someone who never came that night. I saw a woman, dark hair pinned back loosely, eyes that looked both tired and stubborn at the same time. In one dream, she sat across from me in a cafe, fingers wrapped around a thin porcelain cup. "You're going to work yourself into an early grave," she said, her voice shaking around the anger. I laughed it off. I always did. Adrian always did. Sometimes I woke up with tears on my face, her voice echoing in my head. "Promise me you'll be careful." I never heard my answer, but I knew what it had been. Evasive, reassuring, a lie. Guilt settled in my chest, heavy and cold, because whoever she was, wife, fiancé, lover, I had left her alone in that other life. My death hadn't been noble. It had been stubborn, reckless. I had chosen paper over people, duty over the living, breathing hearts that had trusted me. Now, as Daniel, I felt the weight of that choice as if it were my own, because it was. At school, I grew quieter. Teachers asked if something was wrong. Friends drifted away, unnerved by how I jumped during fire drills or stared too long at old brick buildings. At home, my parents moved around me carefully, like I might shatter if they stepped too hard. One evening, my dad sat down on the edge of my bed. "You know," he said slowly, "whether you were someone else before or not, you're here now, with us. You're our son." "I know," I mumbled. "You can't change what happened." "If it happened," he went on, "but you can decide who you're going to be now. You don't owe your entire life to a past you can't fix." His words sank deep, stirring something I hadn't realized was there. If Adrian had died running back for files instead of out the door, maybe my job as Daniel wasn't to repeat that mistake. Maybe remembering wasn't a sentence. Maybe it was a warning. If you're still here, ask yourself, if you could see every bad decision of your past life laid out in front of you, would you live differently now? You're still here. Maybe you're listening to this in the dark, phone inches from your face, wondering if any of this can be real. Maybe you're trying to decide whether to scroll to the next video or let this one finish, so let me tell you how it ends. At least, how it ends for now. I'm older than 8 now. The mirror doesn't scare me anymore. Some mornings I still catch a flicker of someone else in the glass, a tilt of the head that isn't quite mine, a sternness in my eyes that belongs to a man long gone. But I don't jerk away. I hold his gaze. "I remember," I tell him silently, "and I forgive you." The dreams haven't stopped, but they've changed. They come less like attacks now, and more like visits. Some nights I see that little office again, the late-night lamplight spilling over stacks of paper. Sometimes I see the woman with the dark hair, smiling in a way she never did in the old dreams. Sometimes I just feel the weight of a hand on my shoulder, steadying instead of pushing. I still live in this life. I go to school, I laugh, I get into arguments with my parents, I worry about things that would have seemed absurd to a man in the 1930s. I'm not always thinking about fire and stone and old scars on courthouse floors, but the past is there, not as a prison, as a shadow, a reminder that I've already had one chance to throw my life away, and I took it. So now, when I care about someone, I tell them. When I'm tired, I rest. When something tries to pull me back into that old pattern of chasing duty at the cost of everything else, I hear her voice, and his, and I stop. You might say I'm two people living in one body. You might say I'm just a boy with an overactive imagination and too many coincidences haunting his family tree. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're not. I don't need to convince you. But if you've listened to me this far, if you've stayed until the end of this story, let me leave you with this. You don't need another lifetime to realize what matters. You don't need to die in a burning building to figure out who you should have saved first. Look at your own life, at the people waiting for you to come home, to text back, to show up. Don't make them stand outside in the smoke, staring at a door that never opens. My name is Daniel. Once it was Adrian, and this is the story of how I remembered dying so I could finally learn how to live. If you're still here, don't just move on and forget this. Ask yourself, right now, who are you running back into the fire for? And is it really worth the flames?